Hi there, I'm Anna McKerrow. This is my Magical People series. Today I am extremely pleased to be here with Esther Winkles of Tribe Mythica and also Esther in her own right. Hello, Esther.
Hi, Anna. Lovely to
Hello.
see you.
Oh, it's so nice to see you too. And so tell us a bit about yourself to kick off here.
Okay, well, I'm Esther and I am an artist and a leather crafter. And I live, very lucky to live right near Glastonbury, magical Glastonbury in Somerset, which is wonderful.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah. And I work from home, which is really fortunate. And also I'm a pagan. I've followed a pagan lifestyle for many, many years now.
Mm-hmm.
And it all ties in pretty much together.
Okay. And so, all right, let's unpick that.
Yes.
Well, let's start with. I mean, so you're a pagan. What would you kind of describe as your overall outlook, and what does that look like for you?
For me, nature comes into it very, very heavily. I've always had a love and an interest in nature. It's just always been something that is, and I think a lot of people will relate to this. I've spoken to people and everyone says it, but it's very much something that's just always been there for me. I was brought up with quite Christian views, which is fine. But I also had a lot of questions, my poor parents, and at school and everything. I think, it was paganism. When I found paganism, it answered a lot of those questions that were missing before that.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense, basically. It's just a lifestyle and a belief and a faith that makes a lot of sense to me.
And so, have you found over the years that you've been particularly drawn to perhaps working with particular gods and goddesses, which is a pagan thing sometimes?
Yeah.
So you can be.
Yeah.
What about that?
Yeah, I have actually. Particularly Bridget was a strong influence. I actually painted Bridget, and she's one of my most popular paintings. I've had a lot of people who have seen her and have just totally connected with her and have said that I've really captured her spirit and everything about her. It really speaks to me, which is lovely, because when I was painting her, I really went into a kind of deep meditation and connection with her. So it's nice that that's actually come across and spoken to other people. So yeah, she's definitely a strong influence, and being a fiery redhead creative, I can relate.
Yeah, definitely. She's very you.
Yeah, so she's definitely a strong influence. The other one is Ellen of the Ways, who isn't so much known. She's quite elusive, but she very speaks to me. She's very a lady of the forest with antlers. And yeah, I went on a retreat for Ellen of the Ways and did a lot of discovery and work with her there. So she's very close to my heart. And the third one would be the Morrigan. The Morrigan. She's a total contrast, but then I think that's why. Just to bring in, something a little bit, I say darker. I mean, a lot of people were maybe scared of the Morrigan. I get a lot of people a little bit not comfortable working with her, but I think she's got a lot to teach us as well. And she came into my life and I think totally balanced where I was with Bridget and Ellen of the Ways. It was a contrast and a total balance. So I have also painted her. So I've done two artworks of those. They're my sort of close to my heart, strong influences.
Yeah, and that's so Bridget and Morrigan are both from the sort of Celtic, specifically Irish tradition. And Ellen, actually, I had interviewed somebody else who was talking to me about Ellen, and that's, I mean, originally I think Scandinavian. Am I right in thinking that?
I think so. Yes. Yeah.
A very kind of adopted, as you say, like woman of the forest and that sort of nature of the UK now as well. Yeah. It's always so interesting to know, because people kind of sometimes, I mean, I've talked to a few Morrigan fans, definitely. But it's kind of interesting to know people work with different deities, gods and goddesses. And I think that's always a really interesting part of paganism or witchcraft or any of those sort of umbrella things. is that actually not always, not for everybody, not everybody is into gods and goddesses, but quite a lot of people are, and actually it's very kind of deity related, and maybe people don't always think about that, I think. The outside anyway.
Yeah, and that was definitely, when I say, you know, I was raised with Christian views and values, and we always talked about God, which is fine. I had a lovely connection as a child to God, but my question was always, when I was a child, was where's God's wife?
Yeah.
Where's the female in this? You know, and that was something that I don't know where that came from. That was just something that I questioned. And going down this path and discovering all these deities, you know, that very much answered that, and these female deities come in really strongly. So that's quite interesting.
It is, and of course, I mean, goddess energy is very empowering for us, you know, especially as you say, if you've come from a patriarchal religion where you, I mean, obviously there's the Virgin Mary, you know.
Yes, that's true.
But she's not really seen in the same way, is she?
No.
Who got demoted, bless her.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all right, well, that's very interesting to know. And so tell us a bit, Esther, about how sort of nature and your paganism informs your work. So you're a leather crafter, but what do you actually make and what do you do?
Well, I can show you, because I've
Please do.
Mostly what I've seemed to have ended up doing is making handbags.
Delightful.
This wasn't planned, quite by accident. I'll show you. I mean, this is maybe one example.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
So I work with my husband. We work on this. This is our business together, and he very much does the leather construction. So he does all the hand stitching and the making. Okay. And then I much do the artwork on the bags. So yeah, I mean, I started out many years ago, as I said before, painting. I always wanted to be an artist from very young age. I was always drawing, always creating, and I set out alongside day jobs, painting and creating, and leatherwork kind of came into it by accident, but has become the full-time work that we do. It was actually my husband who started doing leathercraft. Yeah. And as a hobby. And when I would go to pagan and fairy events to sell my artwork, and I said, well, bring some of your leatherwork along and see what people think. And so it kind of started from there. And then I was like curious. I thought, well, I'll have a go at see if I can apply my artwork to leather. And so, yeah, it kind of went from there. But as nature obviously very influences my artwork. I'm going to show you another one. Animals, plants, flowers. I mean, another example. I do a lot of foxes. Foxes are one of my spirit guides, one of my animals that's very close to me.
Oh, look at that. It's absolutely stunning. The colours
are a lot of animals that feature in my work. Yeah. Which was an interesting thing, because when I was painting, I was very much painting fairies and deities, and the leatherwork has kind of changed the way that I do artwork and sort of morphed into more animals and flowers and Celtic designs and things like that. So that's been an interesting journey in itself.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Is there something about leather that kind of suits that, or is that what people want more? Or
a bit of both, I think. Yeah, a bit of both. It's hard. It was hard. I did try and do like a fairy on leather, and it was a lot harder to kind of get the details in and everything. Okay. But I don't know, it's just something that's naturally evolved, I think. I mean, doing the kind of knotwork, almost the Art Nouveau or Celtic knotwork style things, work really well with the leather, and that's something that I almost get a deja vu actually when I'm doing that. It's almost like maybe in a past life I have done something like this. I don't know, it's quite a strange situation. Yeah, especially with the Celtic knotwork, because you're carving into the leather, so it works really well with the weaving and the under and the over, and I kind of go into a bit of a trance when I'm doing it. Actually, it's quite fascinating.
Oh, very meditative, I can imagine, as just generally. Yeah. But that's so interesting that particularly with the knotwork.
Yeah, quite strange, but
yeah. Oh, I love. Oh, well, that's a great idea for a book in there, Esther. Or just
I know, right?
Like she makes it, and then she goes into a trance and she goes into a fairy world.
Yeah, love
there
it.
we go, there we go. And so I was just going to mention also that you're wearing one of your necklaces. You're maybe wearing two of your necklaces. I know I can see the leaf.
I'm wearing two. Yes, that's another thing that I do that is quite popular. I make leather jewelry, so I do leaves, feathers. This one is actually Glastonbury tour.
That's lovely. Love that one. I love them all, but yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah, again, they were quite by accident. I was just using up offcuts of leather from doing the bags and the bigger pieces. And I thought, well, you know, end up with all these small pieces of leather, or made a leaf and a feather, and that kind of, to the jewelry, which people seem to love as well, which is really nice. So
yeah. It's and I mean, I'll put the links to your business underneath, but so your leather crafting business is Triba Mythica.
It is, yes, yeah. Triba Mythica.
And is it tribamythica.com is the website?
It is, yes, yes.
Okay, so we'll say that anyway, but we will link to it as well. And can people buy from you online, or do you tend to do like a big order and sell it all in one go, or how does that work?
Yes, what we've been doing, obviously the last year has changed the way that we and many people have had to do things. We were doing a lot of events before last year, so mostly we'd have to work for a couple of months building up stock and then take it all out there into the world and sell at events. Obviously that stopped, so we've started selling online a lot more now, and we do monthly updates. That's how we seem to be working the best at the moment, because it takes it, you know, these things are quite time consuming. It takes us quite a while to build up a collection, and so we thought, so every month we release a collection. We've actually got one releasing tomorrow.
Okay.
And I give a time and a date, and it all goes live on the website, and that's when everything is available. The bags do sell out very quickly, I must say, which is that's quite amazing. So every month.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, that's good, because I'm sure lots of people watching, having seen the bags and the jewelry, will be all over that basically. And there's somebody coming to my door.
Oh dear,
I've got to pause, hang on. Okay, sorry about that, people watching. I had a delivery. So yes, I was just about to say, I'm a big person, you know, big fan of handbags and jewelry, so I can imagine that they sell out very quickly. And also, I mean, I don't think there's anybody really doing quite the same thing as you guys as well.
There's a couple of artists that I know that do similar work, but we very much got our own styles. But no, there's not many people doing this. It's quite an old craft. I think there's more leather workers in America, but not so much over in the UK that I know
of. Why is that then? Because I was going to ask you, is leather crafting a very traditional kind of old British craft? It seems like it would.
No, I don't really know, because obviously there's not a lot of evidence. Leather, you know, will break down over time, so there's not a lot of evidence and things that have been particularly found of that. So I don't really know. But I definitely feel like it's, you know, as I was saying, there's definitely something that I connect to, that I feel is that I'm tapping into something ancient and something that people have done for a long time. And I have seen, where was I, in York at the Viking Museum, and they did have a couple of leather things there, and that was quite fascinating to see. So I don't really know.
Yeah, it's fascinating to know. And I wonder why then it's more popular in America. Maybe just, you know, for whatever reason the craft has taken off there more. I don't know, but interesting. And can we talk a little bit about let's talk about Glastonbury, but I mean, we can talk about, I mean, it's a very, you live near there, it's a very mystical place, very important to lots of people from lots of different religions and traditions, actually. I mean, do you find that sacred sites and places kind of feed into your work as well?
Absolutely, definitely. I mean, my inspiration very much comes from being out in nature. I absolutely love going out for walks. I go out as much as I can onto the land, and that's very much where my inspiration comes from. Glastonbury, and in fact, because we moved to Glastonbury from Essex 2.5 years ago now, so I've not been here that long, but it's been somewhere that I have visited for many, many years, and like so many people, you get the call, it's a beautiful place, it's a magical place, it's got a lot of inspiration, and the call was very strong for me, enough to want to move down here. But it's also the land around. I mean, Somerset is just a beautiful county. So we moved here partly for Glastonbury, but partly just because it's just so beautiful, and some of the walks and places that we are able to visit around Glastonbury as well. It's an interesting place. I live just outside Glastonbury, which I'm kind of glad about, because Glastonbury, it's amazing, but it's quite bonkers. So it's actually nice to be back from it occasionally. But
sure. It's got some really energetic, it's very interesting energy, isn't it? Because as you say you've got obviously the Tor, you've got Sacred Springs there, you've got the Abbey as well. So, but also, it's sitting on more than one ley line as well, if you're that way inclined to be interested in things like ley lines, kind of energetic lines crossing the earth. And I think most people, when they go there, can feel something, definitely. And it kind of feels different in different bits as well.
It does,
which is quite interesting. And there is a sort of a crazy element, for want of a better word. And it's quite interesting to consider how people are being attracted there. Like, everybody's feeling it, and maybe feeling it in different ways.
Absolutely. I'd say that. I mean, and I think people, even if people aren't particularly into picking up on energies and things, such as my husband, I wouldn't say he's quite skeptical about things, but even for him, coming to Glastonbury, he felt something, he definitely connected to the land. I think it does that for most people. We'll pick up on something, whatever that is. Quite interesting.
It really is. I find when I go and visit on the first and usually second nights, I'll always have some really bonkers dreams, like crazy. Even for me, I'm quite a bonkers dreaming person anyway. Just in that, your system is getting assaulted by the energy, in a nice way.
Well, again, my husband never used to remember his dreams, and then every time we come to stay in Glastonbury, he goes, I had a completely bonkers dream, and I've remembered it. And we've moved here, and even though we're not actually in Glastonbury, although we can see the Tor from our house, so we must be on some kind of line.
You're on the line.
He has bonkers dreams and remembers them, so there's something going on there for sure.
Definitely. I also find it fascinating because it's like mythically, it's like it was hidden in the mists. Used to be much more boggy and water filled than it is now because of Somerset levels, and it had that reputation of being in the mist, like a fairy place, a hidden place. And I still find that now, in terms of it hasn't got a train station, it's slightly inaccessible. It's got that, when you drive up to it, you can't see it for ages, and then you suddenly see it.
The Tor, I think the Tor disappears and appears. As I say, I go for a lot of walks on the land around Glastonbury as well, and there are some amazing viewpoints where the Tor will just suddenly appear out of nowhere, and it's there quite obviously, but for the last hour you've not been able to see it. It's fascinating. So it's definitely got that quality. Actually, we do get the mists. I've been up the Tor of an early morning when had that low-lying mist, and you're on top of the Tor and you're above the mist, and it looks like the sea. It looks like it's the glass isle, isn't it? So, and it actually looks like that, and that's an incredible experience, because you can really see how it may have looked when a lot of it was underwater at one time.
Very strange, to imagine. So it's very well, we could talk about this all day, couldn't we?
Yes.
Very much kind of a portal to the past in that way, isn't it? At some times, like, yes, exactly. Some days you can be up there and there's lots of people and it's sunny and it just feels like this is quite scenic. But then other times it does feel very mysterious, and especially if you were up there on your own or something, you would feel, I'm completely somewhere else now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really amazing. If you haven't been watching, go. I find it fascinating. Lots of people have not visited, and then I have to remember not everyone is at all spiritually inclined. But it's a really good place to go, as there are so many lovely sacred sites in Britain. Not just that one. Yeah. What else can I ask you, Esther? So we've talked about, your leather crafting and your artwork in Glastonbury, and I mean, tell me a bit about when, in the days before COVID, where you were doing events and things. What kind of events were they? What was that all about? Because
I've done all sorts over the years. I mean, that's partly what drew me to Glastonbury, was coming to Glastonbury to do an event. I have done witches markets, fairy markets, pagan markets. I've done some. I mean, I've done them not just in Glastonbury, all over the country over the years. And it was taking my artwork out to these events where I've discovered this whole community out there. I mean, that's a big part of it, actually, the whole pagan, fairy, witchy community. Witch Fest is another. I haven't actually traded at Witch Fest, but I've been along to Witch Fest, similar events, and just meeting like-minded people was probably the biggest part of that. I mean, it was lovely to get my work out there, but actually to see other artists, other creatives, and other people that share your spiritual beliefs it's fascinating, and it's lovely. And I've made a lot of good friends from doing the events. So fantastic.
I'm thinking about, and I've never been, but I have seen, and I know that you go usually. You go to the fairy ball every year, which is that always in Glastonbury, or is that elsewhere?
And that's in Glastonbury, so twice a year, the fairy balls. They're amazing. They're just,
tell us, because it's a big fancy dress do. You can't just go in your jeans.
It's a 2-day event, and so I normally do the stall. It's in the town hall in Glastonbury. We do a stall for 2 days, so the Saturday and Sunday normally, and then the Saturday night there's a fairy ball, which is just phenomenal. I mean, over the years, the level of costumes has just grown and grown and grown, and what people come up with is incredible. There's normally a theme, so people, you can work to the theme or not, but it's just amazing. And that's always been a really brilliant inspiration as well, because something else that we do is leather costume pieces. My husband makes armor, and we do headdresses and masks and things like that as well. So and I always love the themes and just creating something to a theme. It's absolutely amazing, and hopefully they'll start up again soon. I mean, that's something that we've all been missing, I think, over the last year.
No, I'm sure, hopefully, yes. That's right, because I remember I've seen quite a lot of the costume stuff that you and Martin have made, and I remember he was making the Witcher armor at one point. It's very exciting.
Yes, indeed.
Very popular. I hope it was very popular, but I'm always fascinated by the costumes at the fairy ball, and they are the ones I've seen anyway, very full on, and very impressive, which is really nice. I think it's a nice thing when you're talking about community as well, because I think it's quite interesting, like Witch Fest that you mentioned, which is probably it's a 3-day maybe event, like a massive witch conference basically. And on the times I've been, I really enjoy, obviously go to different talks and events and workshops and stuff in it, like any conference, but like just actually the sheer numbers of people that are going is really interesting. I mean, that's thousands of people, isn't it? really.
It is, yeah. They're huge events.
So I mean that's interesting in itself. And I also recommend people to go when it starts back up again. It's always really fascinating, just full of modern practitioners talking about all their work in so many different ways. I'm sure in the States they must have the equivalent, probably more, but that's our kind of big one, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So lots of recommendations. So the last thing that I like to ask people, Esther, is have you got like a book or a resource or a film or something that you would recommend to people who are kind of interested in the things we've talked about now, but you really like, maybe?
Oh gosh, there's so many.
I should have prepped you on this.
Film. One of my favorite films has got to be Practical Magic.
I mean,
it's my go-to film. If I feel down or whatever, I will watch Practical Magic. It's just so, for me, it's just beautiful. And I've read the book as well. And there's also 2 sequels that Alice Hoffman, who writes the books, 2 sequels. So it's a bit of a backstory into those characters and the aunts.
Oh, I really loved that. Yes, I read that. It was really good.
Yeah. So that would be, definitely one of my top films. Books, there's too many. I don't know. That's a hard one. Was
there one that you kind of read that was quite formative for you? Because I can think back to the 90s and coming across books by Janet and Stuart Farrar, for me, like What Witches Do, and also those quite a lot of Llewellyn books at that time, which were sort of witchcraft primers.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I actually worked in a bookshop for a very long time, my early 20s, and bizarrely enough, most of the people I worked with were also pagan and so that was an interesting time. And it was sort of early 2000s, and when a lot of those books it was very popular. We had a massive section of witchcraft and pagan books. So I'm trying to think. We had, do you know what, Fiona Horn? I had of her early books, and she actually came to the bookshop to do a book signing and a little witch. And she's written some really, really interesting, lovely books.
I remember having at least one of hers. She's Australian, I think.
She's Australian, yes. Yeah, that's what. There's so many that come to mind.
There's so many, which is to be grateful for, isn't it? There's a nice lot of variety. Yes, and I think I'm right in saying her books are nice because they're really accessible too, and very kind of, I'm a normal person doing this.
Yes, very much so.
Which is always really nice, I think. Great recommendations, thank you. So again, if people want to find you, obviously there's a website which is tribeandmythica.com. But they can also follow you on Facebook
and Instagram. So again, just Tribe and Mythica, and follow us on there. That would be lovely. And actually a lot of artwork is under the name of Esther Remington, and there's also a page on Facebook and Instagram for that as well.
Okay, brilliant. So we can all flock along and see all of your brilliant work and buy lots of it as well. Well, Esther, thank you. It's been so lovely chatting to you. Thank you for talking to me today. And thank you, and have a great day.
Oh no, thank you very much. It's been lovely.